When we go from what do I need to do to help my teen to who do I need to be to help my teen, we go from control to evolution. We take that pain, that painful experience in your family. When you ask that question, well, then who do we need to become? All of a sudden, the pain becomes growth.
Welcome to the Generation Youth Podcast. I'm your host, James McLam. I am with a new friend, someone that my great friend, Brittany Richmond, introduced me to. Amy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, James. I'm so excited and I'm so good to meet you and your audience and have an awesome conversation today. Really excited.
And I want to tell the group, because this is going to be up before the next summit, that if they want to hear a little bit more in depth from you and figure out how to contact you even more, we want them to be a part of the summit, which is coming up the first week in February 2026. Wow, 26. Wow.
I know. Where's 25?
Well, you and I, when we're recording this, we have like 2.5 days left of 25. So, Amy, before we get started in our conversation and really diving into an issue that I'm glad we connected, because I've been searching for someone to speak on this with passion and authority for quite some time. Introduce yourself to the Generation Youth audience. They'd love to hear from you, about you, instead of me sharing with them the highlights.
All right. Well, awesome, everyone. My name is Amy Kathleen Lee, and I am a suicide survivor, an eating disorder survivor. I spent about 18 years battling an eating disorder. I went through a very dark time in my life where I battled deep suicidality. And at the time I was a parent. My journey has been years and years in the making. My teenage years were really tough. I don't know if anybody's ever moved away from home at the age of 14 to study pre-professional classical ballet, but that is in fact what I did. So my adolescence was not the typical adolescence, especially at the age of 17 when I suffered a career-ending spinal injury. And so, my life took a huge turn. And as a teenager, that it's extremely difficult to go back to regular high school and be like, how do I interact with everybody? And so I went into my 20s and I was really struggling, and I was kind of putting everything beneath the surface. I was like a lot of people do, right? We kind of push down those feelings because I wasn't quite sure how to talk about them or even understand them myself. And it took me to being a grown-up. Now I have a teenager and she has her own mental health struggles. And so that is actually why I am so passionate about talking about the real deep issues that youth face, because I've seen both myself, my family go through it, and now I'm a mom who parents a teen through it. And it completely changed my perspective on mental health, suicide, how to talk about suicide, the myths that people come up with, which if you don't know, you don't know. Right. And that's why this conversation is so important, not only for the teens to hear, but for the parents of the teens to hear. Right. So I like how you identified it as kind of a taboo topic. Right.
It is.
Not everybody wants to touch it. And you know what? In fact, I respect that, because I think, we're talking about something that's so puts so much vulnerability into the conversation that I think approaching this conversation with reverence and respect, it's important. It's really important.
I love that you have this passion about this, because it is, as I said, so taboo. Why? Why are we talking about it so much now? Why is it such a bigger issue now? And we're not to say that it's not always been there. I mean, I'm in my mid-50s, I'm a child of the 80s. And I remember after school specials. Anybody remember used to have these little mini movies after school, and they would sometimes talk about these issues, but it was always kind of just touched on, not really dive in really depth. And even when we had in my 4 years of high school, just one person that I went to high school with that I remember committed suicide, it was not really talked about. We didn't address it too much beyond the acknowledgement from the teachers in that class, the days following, and then it kind of moved on. So what's different now? What's going on now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're doing a lot better with talking about these tougher issues. There was no language around it when I was a teenager. I'm just going to put it out there. It was in the 90s. There were no cell phones, there was no social media, and that was a gift, I think, in a lot of ways. I wasn't growing up behind a screen, but we still had deep issues that I think culturally had not been discussed. Because if you think about, like, when I'm in the classroom and I say, hey, raise your hand if you were taught to not ask personal questions,
Mm.
right? Because you're going to make somebody uncomfortable. So that's personal. Don't talk about it, right? And so we do it in a lot of ways to protect that person's privacy, or I don't know what to say. Like, I don't want to hurt them. Should I bring it up? So I think some of it is just education, that we're getting better at learning how, just giving ourselves permission to talk about that part of our life experience. And that's poured into the conversations with youth. And now you've got youth advocacy groups, you've got youth ambassadors, you've got nonprofits, you've got funding. So you have this big conversation now. So, and I think too, information is easier to access now than ever before. So the conversation seems so much bigger because we can share so much information easily. And there's a lot more education around how to talk about suicide as something that is not a crime. Like, sometimes our language around suicide used to be very archaic, where we actually
Yeah.
would typically use the word commit, like someone committed suicide. That was just sort of the phrase we've always used, right? But as in my training years, and I became a trainer and an educator, I realized that actually kind of gives a little bit of the wrong message. It's more like they died by that. Like, they died by suicide. They were in that space where they were in so much mental anguish that death was the only solution. And how do you give words to that?
Hmm. I hate to ask this question because, the question is, what are some of the potential causes of this? Because I don't believe there is a simple answer for this. And I believe asking that question sometimes diminishes it. But I do know that there are people screaming at their either at the computer right now or at the app going, all right, I'm concerned that the youth in my life, the teen in my life, whether it's their child, someone they know, someone that's around them, is worried about these issues. So what are some of the causes
Mhm.
that kind of drive this, if we can even, put it in those simple of terms?
Yeah. And it is complex.
Hmm.
And it's typically not just one thing that creates the deep pain. And I talk about pain a lot in my work because I've realized that, and this is what's going to help people to realize that suicide is not the problem, it's the symptom. So, what you can see on the surface, you see them suicidal, self harming, hiding alcohol, beating up other people, being violent at school, addicted to games. Like, these are all stuff we can see. That's what you can see. And those are all the symptoms. So, what we're doing in our awareness efforts is to help people understand that stuff, really important stuff, is actually the symptom. So if that's the symptom, we start asking better questions about what's actually beneath and driving the behavior. And there are a few, I think, themes in suicidality. And I want to make sure that we don't pathologize kids who are suicidal, because suicidality is not a mental illness. A lot of teens who attempt suicide do not have mental illness. They are in an extreme amount of pain for a variety of reasons. And their brain told them that that was the solution that it could come up with on its own. So if we look at it that way, we start to ask the right questions. Well, then what is going on? And if we could see beneath the surface, there are a few themes that you're going to see. You're going to see hopelessness. This will never go away. This is never going to end. And there's nothing that I can do to stop that. And it's almost as if it's a nervous system response, right? It's a response that says, well, look, here it is, man. I can't change my life. I'm stuck in this life. I don't feel powerful over my life. I want out. And that's how I felt when I was a teenager and my life was crumbling down around me and I lost my career, my community, my friends, my dad went back to work, I went back to high school, I couldn't fit in, and I didn't know how to change that. So I decided that I don't want to be here anymore if this is how it's going to be. And to me, that makes perfect sense. If you look at it through that lens, that person isn't weak. It's logical in their mind because that in that moment, that's their reality.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be our reality. And that's a really tough thing for parents. And I know this because I was, and I still am, a suicide intervention specialist. I was right down the hall the night my daughter went into the kitchen and grabbed the bottle of pills to overdose. She had the safety plan on the fridge. We did everything right. And the wave of pain came and she went for the bottle of pills. And one of the things that is so hard to wrap our mind around as loved ones is that their pain is not about us. Their pain is theirs. You can't have it. The reason why you can't is because in order for them to heal that pain, you have to allow them to hold it.
Mm.
And the part of the parent's journey is allowing that to happen. And I know this firsthand because I watched my daughter. We went to the emergency room and they took care of everything. And she went to the psychiatric hospital and I felt hopeless. I felt like it was my fault. I felt, what did I do wrong? What did I miss? Could I have done better? And here I am. I've trained over 1,000 people in suicide prevention. And I tell them it's not your fault. And here I am going, my God, what did I do wrong? So suicidality on the surface, again, is the symptom. Hopelessness, I'm not going to be able to get out of this. And also, too, is this Dr. Paul Quinnett, who is the creator of QPR, question, persuade, refer. He is a suicidologist, has been working with suicidal people his entire career. And he said it so well when he said, we develop what's called a psychache instead of the headache. And when we relate mental health to physical health, it's like, oh yeah, everybody knows what a headache feels like, right? So it's like annoying and you can't concentrate and maybe you want to take some Tylenol, right? So when you're in deep pain from what? Life happens. You see bullying, you see families falling apart, you see society, you see the news and all these things, and we're wondering why our kids are in so much pain. So the first thing that I suggest people do is to start looking at all those things as the symptoms and then ask, well, what's really happening?
Mm.
And then we can get to the deeper issues and the fact that empathy is the most powerful tool anyone can use with someone who's in that amount of pain, because empathy sounds like, I have no idea, I can't possibly understand what it's like to be you, but I know what it's like to feel alone and afraid and broken. And that pain isn't too big for me. And I'm going to sit here with you in it. I'm not going anywhere because I care about you. And that is powerful.
Hang on that empathy for a minute, because when we were thinking that, I was thinking most parents, most adults don't react necessarily with that level of empathy as much as they react with, I want to fix it. I want to jump in and correct anything. I want to jump in and do something active to fix your problem. I want to give you the Tylenol that's going to cure your headache.
Yes.
We're used to doing something to physical, and now we got something that doesn't relate to that. So how can we help adults who are working with youth in this aspect transition to that? Because immediately my go-to want to do something self, when I hear empathy, sometimes I'm of that opinion, oh my gosh, this is not exactly what, my instinct is to do. My instinct is to jump in. So.
Oh, heck yeah. You see someone drowning? Like when someone's drowning, they can't talk, right? They can't be like, oh, by the way, I'm drowning, help me, right? So you're seeing the distress and you're like, well, I'm going to jump in and help them out. And and there's one of the things that fixing is to control. I spent my entire parenting life trying to protect my daughter from the outside world. But that night showed me that I can do that the best of my ability, but I can't protect her from herself. So when we shift from what do I need to do to help my teen to who do I need to be, that is when we stop fixing and we start evolving.
Say that again so the people at the back of the room who weren't paying attention can hear it again.
Hey, y'all, this is really important. Listen up. When we go from what do I need to do to help my teen to who do I need to be to help my teen? We go from control to evolution. We take that pain, that painful experience in your family. When you ask that question, well, then who do we need to become? All of a sudden, the pain becomes growth. And you're not controlling that. You're growing into. And that night that my daughter attempted suicide, I saw it firsthand because I did everything right. I put her in the best treatment. I made sure she had her meds. I made sure she had her latest safety plan. We had the conversation in the beginning of the night. I did everything right. There was nothing left for me to do. I asked myself, well, then who does she need me to be today? Who does she need me to be tonight and tomorrow and the day after? And it was the mom who didn't judge her for not coming to me. We need to stop judging our kids for their pain and start seeing it as the human experience.
That's pretty powerful. That's hashtag worthy.
Hey, you know what? I got a couple more of those.
I'm thinking the parents are listening to this and say, I want to be that person. Yeah. But am I looking for the right things? Am I watching for the right things in my kid? Because I hear so many parents that are so, especially in the teen years, they're looking at things that are the tangible things that they know they can help with. Are the grades right? Are the, those types of tangible things that show how well their kid is doing. But are they looking for the right things? How can they see potential problems on the horizon?
That's a great question. Well, first, I think shifting our perspective on that those things dictate wellness, to what does stability look like, right? It's not necessarily, well, they're getting good grades, because that's what's really confusing to parents is when we define my kid as well as, well, their grades are good, they're able to participate, they're doing this, they're getting a good night's sleep. So therefore, there shouldn't be any problems. But when we embrace the idea that two things can be true at the same time, you can have a teen who's doing really well in school. They have friends, they have a hobby, and they're still experiencing deep pain because they're on an inner journey that we might not be able to see. And so I look at how well is my teen adapting to new challenges? How are they practicing well-being and taking care of themselves? And are they reminded regularly that, hey, I want you to know that when you don't have it all together, that matters to me. Like, I love that you. I remember telling that to my daughter because my daughter's a perfectionist. She wanted to be strong for me because she didn't want to stress me out. And a lot of kids, they feel like a burden when they say, hey, I'm not okay. And we keep telling them, oh, tell us you're not okay. Tell us when you're not okay. But then all of a sudden, then we react and they're like, see, that's why I don't tell you I'm not okay. Because you can't handle it, right? So I lost my train of thought. That's never happened. Ever. In the history
try
of
hosting
Amy.
a podcast and thinking, hearing something that the guest says, and then you just pause on that, and they've said 3 or 4 more sentences, and then they pause, and you're like, okay, now what do I say?
And this is when you rewind, and so, yeah, how do parents know when their child is struggling? It's going to be different for everyone. Mm-hmm. I think building, regardless if you can see anything on the surface, we must improve how we are in relationship with our teens. We need to talk to our teens and listen to our teens non-judgmentally and remind them that, hey, you're not going to get in trouble if you bring your problems to me. Because one of the reasons why teens don't tell anybody anything is because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
They're just like, I'm not going to tell them. And I've talked to so many teens and like, tell me about why you don't tell your parents. Like, honestly, like, I really want to know. And they're like, because I'm going to get in trouble. Okay. Like, thank you for telling me. What would be helpful for your parent to say? And I like hearing it from them because this is about them. So we have to start looking at our teens as they are the experts on what they need. We're not. So if we literally listen, they want us to be there and they want to hear that you love me no matter what. No matter how many times I fall down, I need to know you love me. My daughter, that's what I was talking about. My daughter is like, I want to make my mom proud. And I said, Anna, that version of you that could barely get out of bed, I love her. I'm proud of her. And she doesn't need to do anything to get my love. And if we can start building connections like that, we will already know what's going on beneath the surface of our teens' lives. They won't have to hide it. But if you want to become that person, here is my suggestion. Grow. Work on you. Look inside where you have room to grow and allow that painful experience in your family to transform you, and then heal out in the open in front of your kids and show them that you can not have it all figured out. But guess what? It's okay to ask for help, and I'm learning, and help me do better. I'd never had a teenager before. She was my only child. I'd never raised anybody before. And this was 2020 is when her eating disorder started, and the pandemic hit. I'm like, nobody's ever done this before. Like, no one's ever parented in 2020, right? So just calling that out right there, we were all trying to figure it out. And I was like, I kind of had this really raw, honest conversation with her. I'm like, well, you've never been 14 in a pandemic, and all of a sudden you had to go to school on your laptop. And I've never done this, and this. So maybe we can just kind of like be in this together, and you let me know what you need and I'll let you know what I need. We can communicate. We became allies instead of enemies. Because she needed to hear, I didn't have every single answer. Yes, they needed someone to look up to, but they need to see that we don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. And then that gives them permission to not have it all figured out too.
You mentioned you guys talking to your teens, and my thought
Yeah.
was, well, let's talk to them. What would you say
Yeah.
to someone right now who maybe a parent's listening, they want to pass this section off to their child or know what to say? What would you say to that teen that's struggling right now?
I guess to a teen that's struggling right now, if I could sit down with them, I would ask them, when was the last time you felt heard? How long has it been since you've had to carry your pain on your own? Tell me a little bit about that pain. What's it like? What's it from? And just listen and validate, not judge, not fix. I really like to hear teens. And then they'll kind of open up a little bit more. I was like, and what happened? What happened next? Just tell me a little bit more about that. Sounds like that was a really powerful time for you. What happened next? And just get really like interested, and honor it. It's like, this is really important, right? And so many teens have told me that they've been told by adults, what do you have to be stressed about? You're not even an adult yet. Just wait till you get older. And I'm like, wow, that's given me hope.
Yeah, hearing it said back and knowing that I may have echoed some of that stuff early on. So
this is the beauty of these types of conversations, is that if we give ourselves permission in front of our teens to not have it all figured out and to be growing with them, they all of a sudden feel permission to do the same. So when I'm transparent, obviously age appropriate, with my daughter and with her friends that now confide in me, and I'm like, you know what, I kind of actually was feeling that the other day. They were like, you were? I'm like, yeah. And so the conversations that we have, how we talk to our teens about adulthood and how they're growing into adulthood. And it's like that comment that I said, about, well, just wait till you're older. And it's invalidating their stress and is basically saying that you just wait until you get older. It's going to get worse. So if we can say, life doesn't get any easier, but you are going to get stronger, and I am here for you every step of the way. We're going to figure this.
I like that, because that gives them that hope and battles that hopelessness. You're going to get stronger.
They're going to get stronger, and it's okay. And even the weakest versions are loved. I think we have we're in a performance culture. We reward strength. We don't reward weakness. And what a lot of people don't understand, and what I just kind of figured out, and I'm old, is that resilience does not feel like strength. Resilience feels like weakness. Resilience is laying on the floor in the middle of the night, weeping, longing for death, and refusing to give up. So when we paint this picture that if your resilience looks like dun, 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 they're never going to, you see what I'm saying? It's like, it's this expectation, well, that I'm not resilient because I'm not. It's like, no, you're resilient because you're still here after all that stuff, and you're still here. That's a pretty good track record. Yeah.
This is such a powerful topic that cannot be really discussed in this short amount of time, but there is one aspect to this that I want to try to just touch on before we conclude. And that's what you and I talked about before, is that there's so much emphasis on pre-help, prevention, prevent suicide, but there's not as much on what happens after it happens. And I shared with you the
Mhm.
story of my daughter's when she was in middle school, a girl that was a grade ahead of her who committed suicide, and how the school was very active, like 2 or 3 days, a week, within that
Mhm.
time frame.
Mhm.
From there until the memorial service, the school was very active. After that, I didn't see as much. I'm sure that they would have been helpful to someone who stepped forward, but how many are really going to step forward? And as a result, I saw girls who knew her, who were maybe even close friends with her, how it affected them. Some left school
Yeah.
to go to another school because they couldn't stand to see the locker there anymore. Some it affected what they were doing socially and academically. So the post-suicide help,
Mhm.
that seems to be something lacking. What can we do? Because everybody's helpless. I mean, we just don't know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all, like, I like the way you said it. It's just everyone feels helpless.
Mhm.
And so we call it postvention. What we do post suicide is equally important as raising awareness and preventing suicide, because how we respond when it does happen shows teens a lot. How we respond, if we respond in secrecy,
Hmm.
that sends the message that there's shame revolved around this. And in fact, the more we talk about and give a space to just share how we're feeling about it, how it impacts us, and that's how we process grief. Teens have to be given a safe space to talk about the experience for them, because a lot of them are just holding on themselves
Hmm.
and they're watching how everyone's responding to the suicide. And if there's response with compassion instead of secrecy, and hey, we want to continue now to build a school culture around talking about it all the time, because what we're going to find is this isn't like just a mental health issue we're talking about. We're actually, it's a humanness issue. It's the human experience. It's sadness, grief, loss. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
in fact, we're not just, let's just talk about mental health. No, let's just talk about life and continue to talk about it. And in fact, that transforms postvention back into prevention.
Hmm.
It's a spectrum.
Amy, there's no way you and I in a short podcast episode could even really scratch the surface. So
I
how
know.
can our audience connect with you to find more resources? Where can they find you online, in the social
Mhm.
world, in the online world? Because I feel like there's a need for people to have a bank of resources to go to get information, to go through this. Because when we were talking earlier about how, during previous generations, we didn't talk about it as much. I think a lot of it came because they didn't have the wealth of information that's available to us. They didn't have those resources. Those people were far and few between. So how can our audience connect with you? That was my question and stuff. And then I started jumping on something else. So.
I've never done that. Oh, you can find me, Amy Kathleen Lee, on Instagram and Facebook, and then my website, amykathleenlee.com. I'm also in LinkedIn, on LinkedIn for professionals, Amy Kathleen Lee. I am working on exactly that, James. Exactly that. My upcoming, I don't know what to call it, movement is big. And it is beneath the surface. It is going to be exactly what we need for parents, for youth. So please, please, please follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Hop on my mailing list from my website. I have keynote talks. I actually have a talk right now called Beneath the Surface, the Pain Killing Our Kids.
Ooh.
And it's an hour of raw stories, reality. I have 1,000 drawings from teens. When I ask them, hey, like, what would this stuff look like in your life? It will blow your mind. And it teaches adults how to shift their perspective on this and then how to show up differently.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on my website, but there will be guides, there'll be more resources. And I have some favorite, like, community partners, like, that are nonprofits that work directly with teens that are doing awesome work. So you can find them on my website as well. But yeah, lots of really cool things coming. I'm so excited for the summit. because my
Yes.
summit talk, Louder Than Likes, it is going to be amazing. So I really, really want to make sure that teens hop on and catch that session, because we're going to be talking exactly about a lot of this stuff, except in more teen language.
Amy, thank you so much for your time today and
Thank
sharing
you,
with
Jay.
us a sensitive subject with such eloquence and compassion and passion, that we could feel that there is a desire to see people get the resources they need and the help they need to be able to work through this issue, whether it's pre, during, or post. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes from, no, this isn't just my story, right? This is our story. These are our kids and this is our experience. And so
Mhm.
we're in this together. And thank you so much for having me and your questions and starting this conversation and doing what you do for youth as
Well,
well.
thank you. And thank you, audience, for sticking with us. If you've been with us this long, this has been a topic that resonated with you. So please do some things for us. Like and subscribe is two of the primary things. We want to hear from you. So like and subscribing to this podcast will help us know that it mattered to you. Reach out to us,
Yeah.
Comment on it here or send us a direct message as well so we know. But most importantly, and I believe that we would both agree to this, someone that needs to hear this message, needs to connect with the resources that we discussed here, and they don't know about this podcast and they don't know about this episode. So please share this with someone who needs this message. Maybe just share with them the links that you'll find in the show notes where you can contact Amy there. Whatever it is, please share so we can reach the right people with the help that they need. Thank you so much again for your time, and thank you, audience, for sticking with us. And we'll be back soon with another episode of the Generation Youth Podcast.